some unknown actions of yours can destroy the whole relationship. Let's go to the comment. You know, people putting like this emoji up, like as if this is gospel. Welcome back, guys, to We Match Now What? This is Abby. I'm Kyle, your hosts with the mosts. Can't believe we're here right now.
Neither can I.
You can't either, right?
I can't. No.
Yeah. Let's talk about how hot it is today because...
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something.
I was going to say, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it, yeah. It's a scorcher outside.
Yeah, it is a scorcher. Right before, so it was supposed to rain today when we checked yesterday.
Yeah.
But then today, walked outside on the balcony and instantly regretted it. So, I mean, there is that. I don't know. Sometimes summers are just awful.
Yeah.
In Toronto in the GTA.
Yeah, like also just like not a cloud in the sky, considering they said it was going to rain.
There were some clouds.
Okay, but like a few.
Yeah.
They were saying like severe thunderstorms or something. You need lots of clouds.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the only reason I mentioned it was because you pointed out a cloud on the way here.
I liked one.
Yeah, you did.
But yeah, no, it's really hot. It's been like yesterday was also really hot. Yesterday was another day. It was supposed to be severe thunderstorms and not. So I'm not sure what's going on. But
so what's new with you? I feel like it's been a while since we've given an update on us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point.
Because there are some things that are new with you. I'm going to name one. Yeah.
What?
You got a new job.
It's the same job. It's just more of it.
Just more hours, more responsibilities.
Yeah.
Same job, I guess. So that's,
yeah.
I mean, it's something to be excited about.
I'm back to working full time during the summer. Yeah.
Right. Get that extra moolah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that. I mean, I've talked to Kyle. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but like I've been at the same place for like 4 years. And so like the girls there are like some of my best friends.
Yeah. Love those girls.
I know. And it's like great to be able to see them. Like I always catch myself thinking like work is my social life.
Yeah.
Like being able to, work, but also like see them and talk to them. Yeah, I love it there. I always joke that I should always keep it part-time forever and always.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really like it. I'm happy about it. I'm happy to be like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess making some bank.
Yep. What are you going to spend all your extra cash on?
You.
Lucky me. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make it rain on Kyle. All right. So I think today there's a couple things we've been thinking about, talking about, bringing up on the podcast.
Yeah.
What are some of those things?
Well, I'm just going to start with one, I guess, that we wanted to talk about. And that's like gender roles and gender expectations, generally speaking, but like specifically in relationships.
Okay.
In dating. So I guess let me put it this way. I guess like in modern dating, I think it's pretty obvious. There's been like we've been redefining what meant the roles men and women play in relationships.
Right.
And that's for like a lot of societal reasons.
Do we want to drop one of them?
Yeah. So like one is definitely
the F-bomb?
Feminism.
Yes.
Yeah. With the change in the roles women play in society. So whether that be now is like in like the workforce and I guess just generally speaking the workforce.
Yeah. Which is, I first want to
leads into other things too.
I want to clarify because I don't want to come off, I don't want people to be presumptuous. Obviously, we're both in favor of equality.
Yeah.
I think, equal work, equal pay.
Yeah.
Is common sense.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like great things that has resulted from feminism. I think, I have a few hot takes on modern third wave
feminism.
Feminism.
Yeah, me too.
maybe we'll get into that today. I don't know, but I mean, if you want to continue.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, like
with that preface.
I'm going to school. Like I want a career.
Yeah.
If that helps, like kind of show like where I stand. But what I wanted to touch on was how the shift in like what you bring, like, so now there's like a different parameter as to what each person brings to the table. Like 100 years ago, that actually sounds crazy to say that it was 100 years ago, but it's like give or take, yeah. So I mean, no, the 1920s, no, that's too far. Let's say 80 years ago. It was like very clear cut, like what the role of a man was in a relationship and what the role of a woman was in the relationship. And I think there was benefits to it, but also there was cons to it. So I think the benefit was the clear cut definition as to like what your expectations were.
Well, like I mean, I know it might seem obvious. What were those general
so for
roles back then?
Yeah. So for men, the expectation as to what you're bringing to the relationship is being the breadwinner. You're the one with the job, making the money and providing for the household. And the expectation of the woman was to be a mom and a wife, and take care of the home. So women were reliant on men for economic resources. Men were reliant on women to have everything else in their life kind of taken care of while they focus on making money.
Right.
And so what I liked about that was it was clear and easy to understand. It was a good balance as long as both parties could recognize that what they're bringing to the table was equally important.
Mutually beneficial.
Yeah. I think there were, I mean, obviously, there definitely were, like, obviously, it didn't always work out where, like, a couple could look at the other person's role and say, yeah, that's just as hard as what I do. Or like if you know, I think the narrative at the time, I wasn't there, but the narrative at the time was, you know, women didn't get the recognition they deserve for what they were doing.
I'm sure there was like a lot of jokes that would go around.
Yeah.
Among men. I don't think all men were like that, but I think that was what triggered this pursuit for respect, first and foremost, from women back then.
Yeah.
To get us to the place where it is now, right?
Yeah. Like I didn't.
Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, like, I had a strange upbringing where I didn't really realize there was that definition between like a male role and a female role because I didn't grow up with it. Both my grandmothers worked. My mom worked. My parents always told me to go to school and get a job. So I didn't really grow up with that. That information that like society used to be like that. I found that out like probably as a teenager in school or something. I don't know, but it definitely wasn't something that was like. It wasn't something that I like saw in amongst the women around me. Also, like most of the women in my life outside of my immediate family worked.
Likewise, yeah. Like I, grew up in a single parent household.
Yeah.
My mom worked very hard. She's probably the hardest working woman that I've known.
Yeah.
And my grandmother worked, my aunt worked, my great grandmother worked, like everybody worked, right? So
yeah, so I always found that like hard to digest, even though it is factual. Like it is true that that's how society used to operate. But yeah, like I
what I want to know is this change where more women were getting involved in the workplace. Was that because of the pursuit for equality and respect? Was it because it was needed to sustain a home, a household, a family? Because it just got to the point. I know it is there now, but like let's use the 90s for example. Were women working more so in the 90s because of the rise of equality or because it was financially a necessity?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure they both play a role. I don't know when, I guess, inflation got to the point of the average household requiring 2 incomes.
Yeah, now the line is like clearly
that's obvious now. I don't
drawn
know.
in the sand.
Yeah, I don't know when that happened, because I feel like that was like is probably as long as I've been alive. That's been the norm, like a 2 income household. I'd like to say, I don't know, but like it's been the norm for a long time now. I just don't know when that started, but
I feel like I'm derailing you.
No, that's all right. It's like it's important to note that, like, yes, there are other factors aside from like like not having the recognition. So I'm trying to like talk about this without just like deep diving into hot takes, because I want to give it a fair chance.
It's very admirable.
Thank you. If someone told me I couldn't work, I could recognize how that would then motivate me to probably do it. Like, there's a drive to do things when people tell you can't.
Yeah.
And also that's like unfair, because like, why? So I understand that. I guess what I really want to get into and how this fits into like modern dating is I've seen a handful of like academics speak on like there's like the evolutionary drive or the biological drive into the roles that men and women play in society. And based on biology and the biological clock of women and the like hormones, things, whatever, like men and women both bring different things to the world by expressing themselves differently.
Yeah.
There's benefits to what men do pretty regularly and naturally, and there's benefits to what women do regularly and naturally. And it's not to say that men and women can't both do those things. It's just, does it come easily and naturally to them?
Right.
And that there's even a spectrum of that, like among men and women.
Right.
Not all men perform the same way. Not all women perform the same way. And when feminism kind of brought the idea forward of being a strong, independent woman who doesn't need a man, and you should work and make your own money so you're not reliant or dependent on anybody, I think the intention there was great.
I just think the narrative that women don't need men, and I don't understand it. Right? I feel like we need each other.
We need each other. I think so. Yeah.
I mean, like you said, men and women bring different elements to a relationship to the world that come easier than their opposition, and that, like you mentioned, that doesn't mean that those things are limited to each gender.
Yeah.
It just might come more naturally. Growing up, especially in high school, early 20s, feminism was rampant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's gotten more rampant. I just feel like I'm more comfortable in my position that men and women need each other.
Yeah.
But, society 10, 15 years ago was telling me that women don't need me.
Yeah.
So why am I even going to pursue a relationship? I remember thinking that.
Yeah. I think the narrative's still there. Yeah, you're right. You're just more comfortable in it.
Yeah. People need each other.
People need each other. Yeah. And that was my whole... so, I mean, I think one thing that's important to talk about in the podcast is like my perspective as a woman growing up in that narrative. Because it got me for a while. It wasn't necessarily... Like, I had other insecurities. I've told you, Kyle.
That's me.
This one.
I'm Kyle.
As I've told you, when I was a teenager, I think I don't remember if I talked about this on a podcast, but we've definitely talked about it. I was uncertain as to how I would be in a relationship because the disconnect between what I was told was like a happy, healthy relationship. There's a lot of emotion involved, a lot of vulnerability. I don't remember seeing that growing up. And that's probably there's like a few reasons I think in my household, in my culture I think that's a byproduct of arranged marriage. It can be. I think it takes a little more effort to work into your emotions.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it from the get-go. I think with our relationship, for example, like we needed to have an emotional connection in order to know we're going to move forward with this. Whereas like with arranged marriage, you don't do that. You're just, you're put together. That's not to say you can't fall in love with each other. You can. Like I've heard like so many great relationships coming out of arranged marriage. Another thing that was like a cultural thing that like made me uncomfortable with the idea of seeing myself in a relationship, especially the way it was portrayed in North America, in Canada, was like there was a lack of affection because it was not appropriate.
There was a lack of affection?
Yeah, like my family just wasn't super, like we were affectionate to kids, but you're not affectionate to other adults.
Right.
Like there's a level of formality that you have to maintain in front of other people. Like PDA is not a thing.
True.
Yeah. Like I remember you'd see like I would see like older family members like holding hands and like that was cute, but like you didn't do that when you were like relatively young in your marriage. Because that was like informal and inappropriate.
Yep. That's a really good point. Thinking back when I was a kid and just observing the adults around me, rarely did I ever catch signs of PDA.
Yeah.
They were very careful about when they showed affection, at least in my recollection.
Yeah, I remember that. I know that's true because it's still kind of true today.
Yeah.
And the thing but I remember like watching, like I'd watch a movie or something. Actually, the first time I think I saw like PDA in like a wholesome way was at church. Like, because you're at church, you're like, you know, sitting in the service and like you'd see like husbands like put their arm around their wife or something. And like I'm not going to say I never did, like, but you rarely saw that. People didn't do that in public in my culture and like my family. So I think I remember, that's when I remember seeing them, like I kind of wanted that. Like I didn't know how to get it. And then also like I recognized that like my upbringing was very different than theirs probably was. So like I didn't know like what I needed to do to get that. But yeah, I'd see like movies or something and the kids watching their parents like love each other. And, you know, like that kind of like encourages, you know, the kid to go out in the world and find that. And I didn't like, so I knew I wanted that, but I didn't know how to go about getting it. And then I eventually, like you asked that question so many times as a teenager where you're just like, when you're in your youth, you just have like rampant curiosity. And if you're constantly asking yourself this question, but you haven't found an answer yet because you're just too young to find the answer, it eventually felt like I just wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I guess I'm just not like a very loving person. Like I used to think about how I didn't like physical affection. And I was like, I don't like when people touch me. That was just like, I think a projection of me already labeling myself as not an affectionate person. And
yeah, I know. We've touched about that before, like on the love episode, I believe.
Yeah.
But I did not grow up an affectionate person either.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I'm talking immediate family. I rarely would ever like hug my mom or dad.
Yeah.
Almost never. Maybe on birthdays, maybe on Christmas when you exchange gifts. Again, I like I said in the love episode, now it's different. Like now I think there's more of an awareness to the importance of physical affection and what that means to the people that are close to you.
Yeah, because I thought it was like inappropriate.
But it's wild to me thinking, because like you, when I was younger, I did not consider myself an affectionate person. I did not see myself wanting to participate in PDA or hand holding.
Yeah.
I actually even remember in, I want to say the 8th grade or the 7th grade, you know, having like schoolyard girlfriends.
Yeah. Kyle was a real player back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, in comparison to today, yeah, my younger 12-year-old self had much more game than the 30-year-old that sits before you. But no, I remember thinking, like, I remember those, you know, those girls, some of them, not all of them, really liked holding hands, and I would go along with it. But I remember, like, back then, not even like really it not doing anything for me. But again, I would partake because
it's a nice thing to do.
It's a nice thing to do. Yeah. And especially with us now, the contrast is so different because I feel like I really appreciate the hand holding, the hugs.
I'm going to interrupt because I'm going to say, like, when I was like really little, like a baby and a toddler, I'm not a baby, but a toddler and a child, I think like the lack of affection kind of settled in when I was a teenager. And again, I don't recognize it being from like angst or anything. It was literally just like me not being able to make sense of it.
Yeah.
I thought there had to be like a purpose to it, and I couldn't figure that out. But as a kid, I did naturally, I think I was pretty affectionate. And so I just thought it was interesting how, like, even though it came, I guess, to some degree, like, I was a part of my temperament and my personality to be, like, affectionate to a degree, but I, like, talked myself out of it because I couldn't, like, I tried to rationalize it. I tried to, like, figure out what the purpose of being affectionate was.
Right.
And I had a hard time figuring it out. So I just was like, it doesn't make sense to me anymore, actually. Like, I think I'm just not. And I used to think I was, like, this, like, really, like, cold-hearted person. I was like, oh, I don't really have feelings. I went through like a stoic phase.
Did you?
I think, yeah. Where I was like fun and bubbly and like on the outside, but if you'd ask me like a deep question, I'd be like, I don't really care.
Yeah. I was totally like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was like Mr. Play It Cool at all times.
Yeah.
You know? Nothing, like I didn't care about anything. Nothing really, you know, I was never really too excited about any particular thing.
Yeah.
Even if I like internally felt like a certain type of way, I would always undermine it.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know?
me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used to tell my friends, like, I remember being like 18, 19 and being like, man, I just want to be a mom. Like I remember like, even at that point, like even with my lack of like understanding affection, I was like, I just want to be a mom. Like I was so over
life at 18.
It's not even a quarter life crisis. It's like a fifth.
Yeah.
But no, I think I was very academic up until high school. And then high school is when it kind of hit where I was like not as excited about it, or I don't know, like maybe I just wasn't getting the same validation. Maybe I just started caring about other things. Whereas like when I was younger, like I wasn't old enough to want more in life.
Yeah.
Like just the satisfaction of doing well in school was enough.
Yeah.
Right. Like, sorry, I was gonna say you do well in school during the day, and then in the afternoon you get to go play with your friends, and then dinner, and then bedtime. Like there was really nothing else to life.
Right.
So I think I could make like I could rationalize it being such a big part of my life when I was younger. But then towards high school, I was kind of like I don't really know where my life is going in terms of anything else. I was like I see myself going like I went to university. I see myself in school, and I see myself working towards a career. But everything else just seemed so confusing and like up in the air.
Yeah.
And I really understand like timing now, but it's so hard to make sense of it when you're younger.
Well, I mean, especially I think because you did have a sheltered childhood.
Yeah.
Which I think there's a lot of benefits to that. But somebody who's 18, 19 who hasn't really experienced a lot outside of family life and friends.
Yeah.
I think naturally it would make sense that you would just want to
I guess there was just so much
start thinking about becoming a parent and I think at that age too, I noticed this in my sister as well. We've had like through a few conversations. For context, my sister's in high school. She's 15. Shelby, if you're watching, what's up, dog?
They don't do this. I just aged myself.
No, they do like this one, right?
I can't.
Yeah.
I tried.
I don't know.
Look at my deformed heart.
You have like a diamond going on. Circling back, like most teenagers, she thinks that a lot of things are unfair about her life, and
yeah, me too.
When I have asked her like questions about, when she talks about how like her life's unfair, I'm like, if you were a parent, how would you navigate the situation if your child was you? Mm-hmm. Right. And it's almost always like just giving more freedom and essentially letting them do whatever they want. Right. Yeah. But when you're younger, you don't understand that living life within a box, there's benefit to that because it gradually allows you to experience new things that I think if you're just like 15 and you're actually just thrown out into the world to figure it out.
Yeah.
That is going to be jarring.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like overstimulating.
Yeah. I'm such a believer in boundaries, not only in like relationships like we've talked about, but just in life, right? Like you got to like live within some kind of parameters.
Yeah.
And, the parameters are narrow when you're younger for a reason because you're incapable of living in that wider range.
Yeah.
Is it fair to assume that you have an appreciation for those boundaries that were set by your parents now that you're older, and you can reflect and look back on the significance of those restrictions?
Yeah, because even recognizing that I was confused about certain things, I really think it was just like relationships. Because if I'm thinking about if I had more freedom then, right? Like if I look at the woman I am today and the girl I was then as a teenager, they're very different people. And if I was allowed to act on my life as that girl, like I think I would have, it would have been problematic. I think I don't know. I think I handle things better now.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like, yeah, you could argue that like it takes longer to come into your own first and then
yeah. You know what?
Put yourself out there, but
I'm gonna talk to Shelby here for a second, because one thing that I don't think that she notices, but I do as somebody who's watched her grow up, is that she is becoming a very mature young woman. And I'm going to give credit to my mom, who has done a great job setting boundaries with her. I know my mom like can be very overprotective because, you know, she first raised me and my brother.
Yeah, 2 boys, yeah.
Which is very different, I imagine, than raising a girl. So, you know, to Shelby, you know, Justin and I, my brother, we had a lot more freedom growing up to explore, and where Shelby might see her life as being very restricted, it's only for, you know, a limited time. And there's benefit to those restrictions that are helping her grow into a very respectable, mature young woman.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see it like when you're going through it, but I see it.
Yeah.
Like I see the strides that she's made since she was like 12, for instance.
Yeah.
And I mean, I only know like a few of her friends, but like generally speaking, I think for a 15-year-old, she's very mature for her age.
Yeah, like the thing about being kind of sheltered too when you're growing up, right? It's just like it's limiting your influences, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Again, like how we said, life can be over stimulating when you're a teenager. It's because you don't even have the discernment of using like adults as your influence. Like you're going to look to your peers too.
Right.
And your peers are just like you figuring everything out.
Yeah.
So the things that you want to replicate you haven't even seen how they play out.
Yeah.
And then you're already implementing that in your life. So I think that's what I liked that about being sheltered.
And a lot of the times when like teenagers say, you know, like, oh, to their parents, you know, they want to do something, their parents say no. And then they're always like, oh, you don't understand though. No, they do understand.
This is going to forever be the dynamic between kids and their parents.
Yeah.
Kids are always going to grow up and realize what their parents were talking about. It's just too late.
Yeah.
Like you've already had the fights and the arguments and the disagreements and whatnot. But
obviously, I think that there needs to be that controlled allowance of figuring out life on your own and being exposed to new things to adjust accordingly.
Yeah.
And the lessons that come with it.
Yeah. I
mean, I can recognize that in you know, situations that I've been in life, right? Where you only learn, I'm not saying you only learn, but like a lot of the lessons that I've learned in life are through experience. And without those experiences, I don't know if I would have gained those same lessons.
Like I remember hearing growing up a lot, it's like you don't have to learn from your mistakes, you can learn from other people's mistakes. I think that's only true to like a degree. Because like you never.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're like extreme examples. Like yeah, like I don't have to. My dad always says you don't have to be bit by a snake to know you don't want to be bit by a snake.
Yeah.
And I'm like yeah, so extreme examples, sure. But there's so many things I ended up doing in my 20s that I never thought I would do, like working part-time retail. Like I never thought I would do that.
Yeah.
And I ended up loving it, which is weird. Like most people don't say they love their retail job, but like I do. Ultimately, I think one of the reasons I can love it is because I know it's like not permanent. It's something I know I don't want to do forever, so I can actually just allow myself to enjoy it because it's temporary. If you would have asked like 19-year-old me, if like, hey, do you think you want to work retail? Like if, and like potentially make like, like some of your best friends, I would have been like, I think I'm good. I think I can find good friends elsewhere. I was opposed to working retail because my mom worked retail and it seemed hard.
Yeah.
And like not worth it. But ultimately like it's about perspective, and it's just about.
It really is, because like to add on to what you're saying, I had a really physically demanding job from 24 to 27. Mm-hmm. I look back on that job fondly, despite, like I worked with a lot of chemicals, solvents, inks, and I hated that part about it. But I look back on it fondly for the people that I met, like the friends that I made and the lessons that I learned from a lot of the guys that also worked there. Yeah. So really, people don't think about that too when they go into working like less than ideal jobs, or maybe even jobs in general. Like, there's a lot of value in just being around different people, from different walks of life. Yeah.
I think because one of the things that got to me in school, in university, because like that was hard too. I made like a few really good friends, but there was nothing, unfortunately, that could offset, because I think even though I met really good friends, like we were all still like super stressed out all the time. And like there was always just like a layer of negativity that like never went away. Because like if one friend was doing well, and like that kind of like your mood is all, I felt like as a university student, like our moods were always contingent on our grades. Like there was literally nothing else that could fix that. And so like if you're in a good mood because you did well on something, but like your other friends are like really upset about something, it's like you almost don't even get to revel in your success because you just feel so bad that like other people are because you know exactly what they're going through. Like I went through it last week. Yeah. Like so I couldn't. It was just like a constant like this constant negativity so I didn't have anything to offset the hard work. Yeah. Any win seemed like too small. But in retail, it's like, this is hard work too, but I just have so much positivity to offset that. Yes. It's like not ideal and it's hard, but it's, there's just other things that are just so positive. Yep. And that's, so it's about perspective. School was hard too. The career I want is going to be hard, but
that's where the real growth happens.
Yeah. And then, and it's like when you go through hard things, it's like you get to, it just adds perspective to the good things.
Like I remember when I got that job, for the first month, 2 months, I remember thinking like, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. This is too much for me. Like I thought I was going to be a graphic designer. Here I am, on my feet for 12 hours a day, like lifting a lot of heavy shit. It wasn't that heavy. I don't want to like maybe like 40 pounds on a daily basis often. But it's not, I don't know if it was like me telling myself that I could do it, but it was just me recognizing the value in challenging myself. And I think if people like take a step back and, when you find yourself in a difficult situation, you feel like you're going to quit, don't quit. Yeah. Don't quit, because you can actually do it. Yeah. Look at us just motivating the world right now. Yeah. Motivational podcast of the year nomination right here. We match now. What, Abby, Kyle? How did we even get here?
I don't know. I can't believe we're here.
I can't. No, I really can't. No, but I mean,
I can't. No.
Like it just hit me. We've just been on a tangent because weren't we talking about gender roles? Should we dial back?
I do want to say.
I love that though.
Yeah, I do want to say like the thing I remember very clearly. What I loved about working retail was, even though I was like in my usually people have like their first like minimum wage part-time job in like as a teenager, and I imagine it's the same feeling. It's just that step towards independence. Yeah. I loved it. Like, so again, like being a very sheltered person, like hopefully that gives perspective. But I was like 22, I think, when I was 22 or 23.
Were you feeling 22?
I was always feeling 22. Even at 27, that song comes on, I'm 22.
Yeah, 100%. Me too.
Yeah, no, I recognize that like teenagers probably feel that when they work their first part-time job, that like sense of independence. I didn't get to feel that, unfortunately, as a teenager. Again, doesn't really matter.
Me neither, really. My first working experience was at 18. Like, I didn't work in high school.
Yeah. What did you do when you were 18?
I was working with my dad.
Oh, right. Yes.
Contracting.
Yeah.
Renovating houses and basements, and it was actually a lot of fun. I there was a lot of valuable lessons there for me as well. I always like wanted to see what my dad did as well, like firsthand. I knew he was a contractor, but and then also like I got to pick up a lot of useful skills.
They're gonna say women.
No, there was no women. There was just a lot of sweaty dudes. Yeah.
Much better. I got to pick up a lot of.
No.
Don't say women. Don't say women.
No, not at all. There was a lot of people working around me in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, I don't know, let me try to think. I don't remember the reason. I think it was a lack of confidence. I remember in high school, I lacked confidence big time.
Yeah.
I think that it could have been just believing that I wasn't capable of working.
Yeah.
Like just not, there was a point where I just thought I was not good at anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except playing Halo. I was good at Halo. Yeah.
So I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can 1v1 if you don't believe me.
I'm a loving and supportive girlfriend. I'm not. No, I actually do want to play one day.
Yeah, we need to play the campaign.
Yeah.
Maybe we do this after. Nah. I would do it, but we'd have to download the game, and with this internet here, it's a GG.
What was I saying? Yeah, no, I think I think I'm gonna always associate like a positive experience working retail because it was like that first sense of independence, and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was delayed gratification at that point because again, like as most people experience it in their teens. I think the reason I didn't work in high school was like strictly.
Were you allowed to?
No. It was just
there you go.
it was just being sheltered.
Yeah.
But also like a focus on school. It was like
makes sense.
But actually what I want to say, and I'll wrap it, like what I want to say to that though, no, it's gonna start a whole nother tangent, but I just think like having kids work in high school and do school at the same time is teaching them time management and a more intense sense of responsibility, but without consequence. Like the consequence is much lower.
Yeah.
When you're a teenager, right? If you feel burnt out in grade 10, that's fine. You have ways to fix it. But if you feel burnt out, like I did at 21, like threw my whole 20s off. I just feel like it's easier. Like there's less consequences as a teenager to like, you know, that trial and error, figuring out how you're going to juggle life.
Yeah.
Versus, and then that's a skill that you carry on into adulthood, and it's just easier to deal with the realities of being an adult. Versus like me being very sheltered and just like having to tackle one very important thing at a time. Like life's not like that.
No.
So in my 20s when I had to tackle multiple important things at a time, like I fell apart. Didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to say on that. Regardless of my opinion on feminism today, what I want to talk about is the interesting dynamic that has come into dating because of the fact that women and men are now more equal in society, right? Which again, I think is great.
Yeah. So what are some of the standouts that you've noticed?
So like first and foremost, I think, again, I wasn't there when they were dating when women didn't work, but what I imagine dating looked like was men and women would show what they bring to the table because it's different.
Yes.
So a man would flex
his job.
Yeah.
His strength.
Yeah.
His
economic resources, right? Like he'd take you out, show you a good time, like like a night on the town, right?
Yep. And then a woman would flex her.
I think like it was straight up just like the personality, because you had to exude characteristics of a good wife and a good mother in order to attract someone, because that's what they were looking for.
How do you do that though? I mean, I'm just curious, like how would a woman back then like convey that she's a fit mother? I think when she hasn't had kids yet.
Yeah, I mean, you're taught, right? Like that was the thing. Women.
That's true.
Weren't necessarily encouraged to, I guess, like pursue much education because you weren't going to work. You would do high school and maybe, like, I don't know. I don't actually know what the norm was back then, but you were taught to be a housewife and you were taught to be a mother. But yeah, no, I think it was just, you had to be like like this might be this is like a controversial stereotype of what women had to do, because like, for example, like being more quiet or complicit, complete, agreeable. We'll go with that. Yeah, like those were traits that women would flex, like I guess when they were being courted, because you wanted to be the agreeable housewife who would go along with the decisions of the man, because that's what was expected back then. So this was an interesting thing I heard, like upon reflection of like relationships back then and marriage back then, is that even though men made the money, they didn't necessarily know how to allocate it in the most responsible way, because they didn't do that. They didn't shop or, they didn't clean the house. So they never thought about the most economical way to do that. Women, women did a really good job at taking the resources that the man provided and stretching that, right? Like stretching their dollar.
Organizing their life.
Yeah. And that was a very intellectual thing to do. Being fiscally responsible is hard.
Yeah.
And that's, I want to say that, like, even though women had to come off as this like meek woman to attract a man, ultimately they also had to show some sort of like wisdom. You had to come across as smart, at least to get the good ones, because they know that like as a man, like they don't want to have to worry about anything about the household. They want that to all be covered. And again, that's hard. So yeah, like I even though you had to come across as quiet, just because it looks like you don't want to come across as like the feisty woman who's going to fight all the time, because he's going to come home from like a long day of work, and then that's not what you want to come home to. I'm not even gonna lie, I'm not a confrontational person, so that sounds fine to me, but I recognize that's where a lot of the controversy came from, those gender roles. Was it sounded like women didn't have like a place to speak up. It's not attractive for them to speak their mind.
Right.
Which I have to say is fair, because I speak my mind too all the time. So
yeah.
I prefer this dynamic of being able to say what I want. But with that being said, I also make sure I still keep like a level head on my emotions. Even though I say everything to you, I don't do it with like an attitude or like anger.
Right.
So, or I try not to, at least. And I think that's the important part. I think the takeaway from that like lesson from history is it wasn't necessarily the fact that women couldn't speak. It was just the expectation that you would say things a particular way. And I don't think that's wrong. I think men should also be held to that standard of saying things a particular way.
Totally.
Anyways, how it's influenced dating today is like women no longer want to be submissive in any way. And so like being submissive entirely is not good. But I think a relationship it requires give and take. And like, so sometimes, because like the thing is too, is it's I think what I thought I would be like in a relationship, I thought I would be like pretty controlling, because I wanted things a particular way, and like I was pretty sure like I was gonna say it. But what I realized like actually dating is I don't need things to be a particular way. And so I think that idea of like being a woman who has to speak her mind, you almost you trick yourself into thinking you have to have a say in everything, and that can get exhausting.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let me put that a different way. It's like if you're like, okay, back in the day, women didn't have anything to say about, let's say like the car they drove, right?
I was about to say that. No bullshit.
Yeah. Like let's say the car they drove, like they didn't really have a say in it. It's just the one that the husband bought, I think. Maybe that's a very ignorant thing to say, but let's say like we'll give it as a hypothetical, for instance. Whereas today, women usually go buy their car on their own, like even like outside of a relationship when they're single.
Yeah.
When you get into a relationship, though, like that is now something the both of you can collaborate on.
Yes.
You no longer have to like solely make that decision yourself. Even if at the end of the day, you kind of like, know what you want, talking about it with someone and kind of like bouncing off the pros and cons between whatever cars you're comparing is like, it's helpful. to not have to worry about that all on your own. But like, I think a woman who is like, oh, like back in the day, like women didn't have a say on their car, so I'm gonna have the say on the car that I drive.
Right.
And then they'll just like take the reins on that. Whereas you could have just like talked it out with your partner and like it would have lightened the load, I think.
So how is this shift impacting modern dating?
I think
I mean, you did just touch on how
like you feel you need to control everything because it's taking back control you wouldn't have had before.
Like there's a demographic of women who are dating who are like not looking to be submissive. They want to maintain at least their own individuality and possibly even control of the relationship.
Yeah.
How is this?
Well, yeah. So like, it's interesting, like in terms of dating. I remember when I researched dating, like what dating was like because I wanted to hear other people's experiences without having like countless experiences of my own. I wasn't looking to like experience a ton of dating. So I was just taking like anecdotal information from other people. And there's like so much stuff. A plethora of it is the word I was looking for. There's so much stuff.
I love that word, plethora.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a plethora of information online. It's just like you have to filter through and see what's like good information and what isn't. But there was this like confusion as to whether or not it was empowering for the woman to call the shots in the relationship, or if it was it was empowering for the woman to call the shots, for a woman to call shots in a relationship. But ultimately, no one really liked that. I think that was the consensus I got. Maybe that was just my algorithm. But I would also see like a ton of women just like complaining that like guys don't put in effort anymore. So I was like really confused about that. I was like, well, do you want to plan the dates or do you want a guy to put in effort? Because like, which one is it? And that's just one example that I couldn't wrap my head around. And I was like, I kind of,
because it seems hypocritical. Yeah,
it's like you can't control everything and then expect someone to put in effort because like you're literally not giving them room to contribute.
Exactly.
And then also like you run into the issue of if they do contribute but it's not what you want and you shoot it down, now you're just discouraging contribution. So that was like a weird dynamic I didn't understand. The other unique thing from that, right, is so like if your motivation to call the shots in a relationship is because you're like, as a woman, you're recognizing you didn't have that you wouldn't have had that option if things were different. So you're just like taking advantage of it, right? You're trying to get the most out of it because you no longer will take those options for granted because like people didn't have that not that long ago. With that being said, though, if your motivation is literally just to maintain power because you're just grateful for it, I don't understand how I don't think it necessarily needs to be like all the power, because like the thing I recognize is in being in a relationship is like I don't like to take credit for all the good things, because my favorite part about being in a relationship is I can be is knowing that there's things about the relationship that I love that you did without any input from me. Because like ultimately, and you can say this about yourself, like ultimately I know how I want the relationship to go. If I did everything and it just went my way, like obviously the relationship would go my way. But it's a lot more rewarding when the person you're with does things that you can appreciate and you're like, wow, like it makes you feel compatible.
I agree.
So I think if I felt like I had to maintain power in the relationship and utilize like calling the shots any chance I got, I wouldn't appreciate you as much.
Right.
Because I'm not actually getting to know you and like what you would do in that situation. All I'm seeing is how you respond to the situation that I've crafted.
Yeah.
So that's like another flaw of dating is not giving the other person you're dating or in a relationship with the opportunity to surprise you and to make you feel good, because you just assume that you're the only one who could do that. Yeah, so it does become boring and monotonous if you always know what to expect out of a relationship because you planned it that way. And I think like that's one of the complaints about long-term relationships is it gets boring and monotonous. as much as you like when the other person, you know, might surprise you with what they're bringing to the table, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like this crazy elaborate thing. Like, for example, if you were like craving Harvey's, but you thought maybe like, oh,
It's
like
a frequent occurrence here.
yeah, but you're thought like, oh no, Abby's over. She probably wants like sushi, so like I'm gonna suggest sushi. But if I said like, oh, you know what, I'm actually feeling like a burger today. Like, do you want to get Harvey's?
My face would light up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like that's like a boring. I just described a very boring event,
Not to me.
but I surprised you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I thought. Yeah, I don't think like in order to be surprised, it doesn't have to be by something like crazy or extravagant.
Yeah.
It just, you know, unexpected.
For the record, you can surprise me with Harvey's literally anytime you want. And I will be just as grateful each time. So let's transition into another topic that we had discussed earlier today. The needs now. So because of this, I guess, change in gender roles in the last X amount of years where, you know, men and women are becoming more equal in a lot of ways, like financially,
I think finances was a big one, right? Like women back then were like,
but even like men, like you look at somebody like me who is like real, like fully capable of cleaning, cooking,
right, yeah,
planning, organizing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's like many other men that are also like that, right? So
Yeah.
we're becoming more and more aligned practically.
yeah. Like, yeah, honestly, men don't need women as much either.
Yeah, like we've all kind of figured out how to fill in the blanks from what we were missing like 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, we talked about how relationships are now more so about building and meeting emotional needs
Yeah.
in one another.
Yeah. Essentially, and I think it's interesting. Like, I don't think people think about it that way. Like they get close, right? Like they approach dating where they're like, oh, I don't need Bob. Like, I make enough money on my own. And Bob's like, you know, I don't really need Sally because, you know, I cook. Like, I really like my cooking. Like, I'm a great cook.
Yeah.
Like, if we were in a relationship and married, I'd still probably cook. So, like, what is she bringing to the table?
There's two things. There's emotional needs and then there's sexual needs.
Yeah. And
The latter seems to be the
thing that people are comfortable doing first.
yeah, it's at the forefront of people's minds.
Yeah.
Because it's pleasure.
Yeah.
What I don't think a lot of people realize is that there are emotional needs that, you know, I think everybody's capable of getting to a point where they can meet their own emotional needs, but it's just a matter of, I mean, actually, I don't know if I believe that.
I think you could be fine.
You could be fine.
Yeah. Like, you can meet needs. It's just, I think when you're in a relationship, it can be more.
There's a lot of emotional benefits that being in a relationship has brought to me.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say the same.
I can.
But yeah, I don't like you had mentioned, or like we just said, it seems like the sexual needs, like in quotations, because
We have thoughts on
I
that.
have a hot take on that as well, but that seems to be the main reason that people date.
Yeah.
They might front like, you know, they're looking for a relationship, but
Yeah. It's usually, that's how so many relationships start these days.
yeah, people are so quick to get physical.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's interesting how, so in that scenario I came up with, where like Bob and Sally are both asking like what the other one brings to the table, and you said, yeah, it's emotional. Like, what do I need from this person? It's emotional needs and sexual needs. So it's like, but you see those two options. You're like, I need this person to fulfill those needs, but addressing emotional needs on like the first or second date, like, that's crazy.
Yes.
Like, who would do that? She said sarcastically. Because it's funny to me, or it just
I like that.
Thank you. It just seems like people are way more comfortable, again, like figuring out if the person they're with is going to address their sexual needs. Like, that's way more, like, that's so much easier for people to address on the first or second date.
Which I find so odd.
Yeah, me too.
But
Here we are.
here we are.
And
Can't believe it.
can't believe we're here right now. Yeah, because it's like you had both of those options to approach on early on in dating. It's just you chose sexual needs because that was more comfortable. And it just goes to show how like uncomfortable people are with being emotional.
Yes.
Equality in other areas has really only isolated two things that people needed to get on the same page about. And if like I just want to suggest that like, you know, maybe be a little more emotional. Everybody needs to be a little more open to being emotionally vulnerable, because when we keep things the way they are now, where it's not, we haven't normalized being emotionally vulnerable relatively early on in dating.
No. But we'll sleep with people after.
Yeah. But then when you go to yeah, and when you go to be emotional, like you come off as the crazy one. Whereas like you're just the one trying to establish like compatibility.
Right.
In other areas in life other than sexually. So I think that like that's something that has to change on like it has to be a big change, because otherwise you're going to see the person who's trying to be emotional, like I'll use me for example. Like that was one of the lessons I learned. By the time I went on a date with you, I had learned that I need, like, even like as we were talking, because I told you I had like, you know, talking to Sam or talking to my brother, I had epiphanies about needing to be more vulnerable. Like in a lot of ways, I could have saved myself a lot of time in figuring out compatibility in like previous dating experiences if I was more vulnerable, because when like in a lot of the cases, both of like me and the person I was talking to, like we were both playing it cool. So like no one was willing to open up about what we were actually looking for. I mean, no, we would say it, but it was just surface level. It's like, hey, I'm dating to be in a relationship. And then it was like there was zero indication of how we wanted to go about that. Or like any deep, meaningful conversation that would indicate, hey, can I actually be in a relationship with this person? There was none of that. And that was partially my fault for not being vulnerable. Because even if the other person wasn't going to open up, I could open up and be like, hey, I'm, you know, really looking forward to having kids or something, right? Like that's a goal of mine that I'm looking to achieve with my partner. So if the person I'm dating is like, yo, she's serious, like I'm not looking for that, message received. We both know that about each other and we could just kind of move on. And I did that with you because that was a lesson I learned. And that's like a good example, right? Like I think so. I think admitting in today's society for a woman to admit she wants to have kids, like I think that's emotional vulnerability.
I think so. Yeah. Easily.
Right? Because you're making something that is important to you, like aware.
No.
Yeah. Or even like something that we did was talk about like our previous dating experiences and how those affected us, how that affected us emotionally.
Yeah.
We were being emotionally vulnerable on our first date, but like what we were trying to do was identify compatibility.
I sent you a post the other day about there's like a plethora, that word again. There's a plethora of dating advice on Instagram, on social media, and some of it is such hot garbage that I just sometimes have to send it to you. I'm like, look at how trash this is, right?
Hot garbage.
Yeah, like there was one where, first of all, the grammar was terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know how these people even like think that like I'm gonna have this relationship quote account, but yeah, I don't know how to formulate a sentence properly. Is beyond me.
Yeah.
But there was one where I almost want to bring it up. I actually might.
Can you? Yeah.
Yeah. The account name is also just great. He said sarcastically. The account name is always_speak_truth. So number one, never talk anything about the ex or past. And I didn't fumble there. That's actually me reading it. Never talk or do something that makes them feel uncomfortable. Because we're all mind readers, right? And people aren't capable of expressing when something that has been said made them uncomfortable. You just have to know that, according to this truth page. This one. Never doubt on them. If they are really into you, they will never cheat on you. Oh, bless this person. Never make them feel like a partner they can't share anything. Oh yeah, this was the one that I sent you. Never get angry on them. And even if you get, period.
Hang on.
So I'm gonna start that one over because I didn't even get to the best part. Never get angry on them, and even if you get, try to self-control and divert your mind. What are you even saying? This is the one that actually got me. Some unknown actions of yours can destroy the whole relationship.
This is bad work. Oh my god.
But this is out there, and they're like, let's go to the comments. Let's actually like let's take a stroll here. You know, people putting like this emoji up, like as if like this is gospel.
This is I can't.
So many people, like, I wonder if these are bots or not. 'Cause so many people just throw up like the heart.
Yeah.
This person's drunk. I can't even begin to read that. The whole idea that you can't talk about your past relationships. Like, that's a no-no. That's a red flag. Maybe in like a specific context, but like I've touched on before, like I wanted to tell you some of like the experiences that I've been in. At this point, I've told you all of them, but
Yeah.
I wanted to be like upfront, and basically it's like me saying like, hey, don't do this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
don't do this to
exactly.
me.
Yeah.
Because I will not be, I will not appreciate this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too. Or
But like
I-
this person, like, you can't do it.
yeah, don't bring up exes or the past is like, for me it was a red flag if someone wouldn't bring up the past or an ex, because it almost now I'm kind of like, well, what are you hiding? Like, why won't you bring it up? Like, why
Yeah.
are you comfortable to talk about it?
Yeah.
That makes it seem like you're hung up on the person. And you're right, like depending on the context, like if every time you did something like fun together and then, you know, you brought up like, oh yeah, like my ex and I used to do stuff like this, right? Like in that context, it seems like you're not over your ex.
Yeah.
So you're right. It does depend on context, but
That's why I think it's important, because you can get that context by talking about it, right?
Yeah.
So me talking about my exes, you talking about like the person that you dated,
yeah,
we were able to gauge like how each other, like how we interpreted it. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can tell like whether or not, you know, somebody's over their ex or not. And I think maybe now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's why there's this,
yeah, it's from people who are trying to hide.
who are, like the whole notion of like, yeah, don't talk about your ex. It's like those people saying that are the people who like are trying to hide something.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about their ex.
Yeah, because maybe it'll trigger, you know, like
Yeah.
feelings, emotions. If you're over your ex, like you should have no problem talking about them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? In a way that is like constructive and respectful. And
yeah, because if you ask somebody to talk about their ex and they're just like bad mouthing them entirely,
yeah, that's like that's something that I don't think either of us did.
yeah, I don't think so either. And I like that's also not great. It's not a good. That's also a red flag, because if you can't openly talk about like why you were with them,
Yeah,
again, it means you're not over it.
seems like you're hiding something.
Yeah,
Like,
you're not over the fact that like you had good times and like but the majority of it was terrible.
yeah,
And you're still butthurt about that, and like you can't talk about
butthurt.
it.
Nice choice.
That was the only choice.
Facts.
The most respect Kyle has had for me.
Oh, that's funny.
That was really funny.
I really like this episode so far.
It's going
This
good.
is fun, yeah. I kind of want to do an episode where I'm literally just reading posts.
I was gonna suggest we should do a reaction video, a reaction episode to what we consider bad dating advice.
If you like that segment where I was talking, or when I was reading those posts, and would like to see more of that, let us know in the comments, because that was fun for us.
Yeah, but also I think what we would do in the segments is we would bring up the advice. So in this case, we're just stating how it's bad, but I think what is also constructive is why we think it's bad and what we think is better.
That's such a good idea.
Right? 'Cause
That is such a good idea.
Thank you.
Let's go. Let's do that again, actually. Yeah, that was better. Yeah. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe. It just helps. Like, the reason we say that too is because I know it's repetitive and everybody says that.
Yeah.
But it gives us a really good idea of like how our content is being interpreted by like you, the audience.
Yes.
If you like this video, I'm going to look at it and be like, ooh,
we did things right in that.
we did things right in that one.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, I might be like,
We need to fix that.
we need to fix that. If you can be so kind and do that, Abby and I would both be forever grateful.
And also, if you have any suggestions for future episode content topics, questions that you want us to cover, let us know in the comments below.
Let us know. All right, guys, we love your socks,
Yes,
and we'll
do.
see you on the next one.
Bye.
Peace.